Most heartfelt greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlethems. I eagerly welcome you to Sturgeon's most premier station, Dusk Light Radio, hosted by yours truly, the strong but meek, frail but frivolous, and morosely mutational Everett J. Blackwell. Perhaps you know of us Blackwells. We were a developer for one of the 5.5 generation consoles. Our company, Blackwell Industries, came up with a truly innovative machine that outdid our rivals in the 64-bit era. It was called the Omega Dendron, a beautiful obsidian dodecahedron that would store its games in each side, activated by touch. It needed no TV, no wires. It was powered simply by the touch of your hand. We then, of course, found out during focus group testing that it was actually powered by the human soul. EA was very eager to get their hands on the technology, but even we aren't that evil. Anyway, I'm Dusklight's main and most fabulous half-dead host. My job at this fine radio station is to bring you some of the most twisted, interesting, and downright bizarre tales that I and my wonderful many-legged runners collect from the far corners of Sturgeon and beyond. Some of them will make you laugh, some will make you cry, and some of you will bend over backwards for the ones you're interested in. Literally. Clue Blackwell has somehow developed a unique form of tic-tac-toe with the stranger in the opposing building I mentioned before. Only they move into horrifying poses until the other makes one of their own. Each time a little more abstract, more unpleasant, and more angry. I tried to reposition Clue, to pull the curtains down on the window, or even rearrange the office so I didn't need to look anymore, but then the Sturgeon Farmers Collective sent me a cease and desist of my activities, a corn on the cob that had rotted through to the core, and told me to watch. So I watch. And I found myself imitating the poses when I let my concentration lapse for just a moment. A hand here, an ankle there. It's all I can do to not slip away into solemnity. I tried to ask Jackal Blackwell for help, but I found him fawning over old Blackwell family photos, and at first I found myself sympathizing with him, pining for a simpler time. But then I saw he was drooling, and realized nobody had served him his gas station sushi this week. So now I'm trapped between one family member who is determined to make me pose like an eldritch pretzel, and another who will try to devour me when I do so. Why me? I hope you enjoy our new trimmings. We got a new coat of paint and even somehow made me more animated. Be honest, listeners, do I still look fabulous? It's hard to maintain beauty standards when you're already 1 foot in the grave. Please show your love for Sir Gorky in the comments and check out his DeviantArt. The man is truly something special. It's time for our story for this evening. This is a Sturgeon exclusive, never before adapted to audio and sent in by an anonymous citizen, but transcribed by and voiced by janitor-elect TJ Lee. You can also follow TJ on Instagram for mostly memes and wrestling updates at TheTJLee. Otherwise, keep it here for all things Sturgeon. Last on our Blackwell watch, Tabitha and Kyle Blackwell have engaged in mortal combat last week following the Day of the Fireflies. This is a sacred day in Sturgeon on June 13th when all violence ceases. The umbral door appears near McGraw Memorial Park, and the hooded ascetic monks wait for you to approach the door, paper lantern in hand and a sentimental offering to give up. All observed this and all felt lighter for doing so. When combat engaged again on the 14th, no quarter was drawn and no punch was pulled. Not out of malice, you see, but out of love and respect. We Blackwell family members have an unusual way of showing affection. The two are currently locked in a stalemate. Bits of spines and crystalline minds chunks rain down on the battlefield with each blow. Bets are being taken for the victor, though we have no clue how long it'll take to see an outcome. Special thanks must be given to Mandy Mo for the original beauteous image of me you see when you look at our page, and to Sir Gorky for the brand new rendering of yours truly, and the truly horrifying rendition of our humble studio, and to Dark Somnium for being such a gracious yet terrifying sponsor of the channel. And lastly, our music is sourced and provided by Crowd Chamber, Invato Elements, and Dark Somnium with gracious thanks. If you enjoy these intros and want to see more, please ensure you've got notifications on and leave a comment for every video you encounter. With that, the sun has set and dusk has crawled into the studio once more. Whether you're working, prepping to sleep, or evading the formless void that will one day consume us all, Blackwell is here to soothe your ears and captivate your soul. Now, close your eyes and take a deep breath. The scene has been set and the light is on. It's time to walk towards it. How I ended up in the godforsaken place isn't anywhere near as interesting as how I got out of it. But in short, I assaulted someone who deserved it. I tried unsuccessfully to take out his whole little group of friends with my bare fucking hands when I'd finally tracked them down. An anonymous tip had come in as to where I may find them, and I wasted no time getting the jump on them. Clearly, I'd gotten too eager and made too much noise, as the cops were there and saw me throwing fists on top of their main man. The victim had high-ranking connections, and instead of going to a normal prison, I went to a supermax facility in Sturgeon due to the severity of the beating and the quote-unquote threat I posed to him and his business. In short, he had his hands deep in the pockets of many a powerful lawmaker who enjoyed what he did. Surprise, surprise. It took him a while to get me sentenced, and the other man I attacked went down for it. But the main guy I targeted, the one who abso-fucking-lutely deserved it, nah, he bought his way out. What a fucking shocker. And thanks to him, instead of getting 18 months, I got 5 years. So, you can imagine how I felt when my dumb 30-year-old ass wound up in a prison full of some of the worst monsters you can ever imagine. Now, this prison was not dissimilar to a panopticon. A central tower rose out of solitary all the way up the circularly designed prison, and the main control center aligned with level 1 where Gen Pop resided. They had maybe 1/10 of the staff to the prison's inmate population, but if you have eyes on every inmate with a shock collar affixed for troublemaking, well, you're bound to behave. Oh yeah, we had fucking shock collars affixed to us upon entry. The governor of Sturgeon deemed us too dangerous to be allowed unrestrained freedoms, but wanted instead to focus on cognitive rehabilitation by giving us those freedoms and punishing us harshly for any perceived threatening behavior. Believe it or not, it stuck quite well. Make of that what you will. Sure, someone would test the mettle of the staff and the warden, make rude comments to start, and then escalate to trying to beat a guy to death. But the shocks would only intensify until the poor fucker was on the ground pissing his pants, or, in one horrible case, his eyes popping out of the skull as the smell of his melting flesh stank out the whole joint. Ugh, didn't eat a grilled cheese for a while after that one, let me tell you. Now, I was assigned a bunkmate, as most inmates are. Paulie didn't say much. He was a scrawny guy who kept to himself and minded his business. Worked for me. I didn't want to make any friends while I was in here, and the kind of guys who were too friendly were not those I wanted to be close to. I ain't anyone's bitch. About 6 months in, I got a letter pushed through my cell door. It's the middle of the night and the Panopticon's lights are still beaming around, but you can never fucking tell if you're being watched or not, so it was largely just for show. Stumbling over, I grabbed the black envelope and opened it at my desk. I kept the light off so as not to disturb Paulie. After reading the contents, I'm glad I did. Inside, written on some dried up material that I assumed was parchment, was a sponsorship letter. It read as follows. Dear Mr. Alejandro, welcome to your new sponsorship program. We are the AF Trust, a charitable organization whose sole aim is to rehabilitate inmates, fund their good behavior, and help them function with the difficulties of prison and life beyond. We chose you due to your prior circumstances, a unique set of skills that we feel will be transmutable in the working world post-sentence, and due to the fact that you'd be receptive based on the help we offered. We differ from other organizations insofar that while they rely on wellness checks, meditation, and putting their faith in gods, we instead have a more holistic approach. We want you to give in to your primal desires. If you are interested, please see the affixed second note. By breaking the seal, you are entering into an agreement with the AF Trust and must see the contract through to the end. We can assure you that, if you should accept, your behavior will be noted and you will be recommended for early release by the parole board. We look forward to hearing from you. As our patron says, always follow the light, the lure in the darkness. I didn't know what it was, but this letter had me transfixed. It had a soft odor to it, like walnuts or almonds mixed with something I couldn't place. It put me in a malaise, and I instinctively reached for the second, smaller letter hidden in the seam of this parchment. A common practice when smuggling in sensitive info, though how they didn't find it when screening this letter is beyond me. Sure enough, it had a thick black wax seal stamped over it, the image of some kind of animal prominently displayed as I tore it in half and carried on reading. Excellent choice, Mr. Alejandro. The Panopticon cannot see you right now. It will not see you for approximately 9 more minutes, at which point they will conduct a random inspection of the cell. You will need to complete your first job for us within that time frame. Your cellmate, Paulie Torino, is a convicted sex offender. He isn't in for those charges this time, but you know how it is. The guards will ensure that few know about it so as to protect his life and status. They assumed nobody would find out, but we did. This isn't the reason you should kill Paulie, though. It's just an added incentive. No, the reason you should kill him is twofold. Number 1, he was under the employ of the gentleman you accosted 6 months ago for your own personal reasons. He testified against you in exchange for immunity for what he did and the promise of a lighter sentence with more privileges. 2, he was given the same letter as you this morning. He's been waiting for this moment, and now it truly is kill or be killed. You will be compensated appropriately both in prison favors and financially for your troubles. Good luck. Follow the lure. For the first time in a long time, I felt fear run through me. Paulie was a scrawny little shit, but any person is dangerous with enough motivation and being locked up in a small cell. I kept my eyes fixed on the letter as I strained my ears to hear for Paulie. Sure enough, he had risen out of his bed and was tiptoeing towards me. He couldn't be more than 2 steps away. Did you do it? Were you there when he did what he did? I breathed. The footsteps stopped. I could hear his heart beating in his chest.
Yeah, I was. I'd do it again. She was one fine piece of ass.
Before he could finish, I turned around and with fist tightly clenched and mind focused, I hit him in the chest with everything I had. The air escaped his lungs and shot out around his body, sending him backwards into his bed and making the most god-awful wheezing sound imaginable. I just used a technique I'd avoided in using for so long, even the incident 6 months ago. but I could not forgive such an egregious act or an assistance to what he did. I stood over him for 5 more minutes, watching him panic as his heart struggled to beat, the fear in his eyes as his breathing grew shallower and eventually dissipated, a slight froth in his mouth. At the 9-minute mark, just as the letter predicted, they called a random inspection. I was feigning sleep in my bunk bed when they came in and saw what had happened. They assumed he died in his sleep, and due to his past proclivities, there wasn't exactly much sympathy going around. The investigation was short, and since my technique is designed for stealth, they never brought any charges against me. So I was moved on. A couple weeks pass, and I'm still on my own in the cell. Another letter arriving in the dead of night, slipped under the door with no visible or audible person walking away after. It's strange, but whatever. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Opening it up, the contents this time were surprising to say the least. It was far more informal and to the point. Not that I minded. Mr. Alejandro, there were 3 more men involved in what happened that rainy night up on Myopic Road. 2 of them are housed here in the Panopticon. All of them will meet their end by your hand. Do this and you will find yourself suddenly free and with a job in mind. The first is now a lifer down at Gen Pop. He walks with a limp and was the one holding her down. Be wary. He is not what he seems. Seek him out at night. You will have a job opportunity that should allow you to get close. If you do this right, you will not be caught. Same as last time. Follow the lure. The following week, I'd been given a laundry job by the warden in light of good behavior. This involved going around to various inmates' cells late at night, getting their dirty clothes and taking them away. Standard stuff, really. But it gave me an opportunity to socialize and get close to the target. A guy known as Withers down in Gen Pop. Second night in, I passed through level 3, mid-security risks, when someone put an object in with their clothes, not even looking at me as they did so. I'm no fool. If someone offers you something that could get both of you caught, you carry on. Nobody snitches. I waited until I turned the corner into the laundry room when the Panopticon didn't follow us to see what it was. My heart skipping a beat when I unfurled the thick sweat at the sea. A fucking silver stake, an aerosol, and a lighter. This motherfucker was a Strigoi. I told you before I was housed with monsters, and I wasn't kidding. This isn't your usual run-of-the-mill prison. The Tempestra is a facility housing all manner of beasts, both the human and nightmare variety. All of Sturgeon's outcasts in one place. Believe me if you want, or don't. But anyone with half a brain knows the government has a lot of secrets and a lot of facilities you do not go near. Sturgeon? The Tempestra? These are some of them. That fucker I beat up used those connections to send me into a literal snake pit, hoping they'd eat me alive before long and keep his dirty little secrets at bay. In any case, I took the items and strapped them to my body with a ripped-up vest, then put on a sweater over it to disguise any awkward shapes, hoping that'd be enough. As I went near Withers' cell, I could hear the old fucker snoring away, his bunkmate nowhere to be seen but the door open. I could have announced myself or woken him up to put us on equal footing, but I am not here to play nice, and I didn't want to risk the shock collar going off. Stepping inside, I pulled the cell door closed and strained my eyes to see him. Turned over and facing the wall as his labored breathing grew louder. I pulled the stake free from underneath and walked closer, having to use the lighter just to see what I was doing. From the angle he was sleeping, I couldn't pierce his heart, so I had to think on my feet. "Hey, Withers, it's laundry day," I whispered, nudging him.
"I know why you're here, son. You got the letter, didn't you?"
He didn't turn, but I could hear his teeth clenching. I held my nerve. "I did. You want to make this easy on me?" He chuckled, pulling the blanket over his head, still turned away.
"Fuck off. I did what I did and I have no regrets. You couldn't stop us then, and you can't stop me now. Panopticon sees all, but...
Something stirred under the blankets, like he was shuddering.
If you want to test me, then you best strike first, lad, because I'm getting hungry and I do not miss.
Left hand firmly clutching the steak, right hand reaching out for the blanket. I pulled it over my head and slammed down the steak as hard as I could, hitting nothing but the mattress. Something dripped onto my shoulder and a low growl filled the room. Slowly casting my eyes up, I came face to face with an ugly, emaciated creature. His skin pulled back, the nose turned up, and the eyes narrowed and yellow, with darkness where the whites of his eyes should be. His mouth was open, each tooth razor sharp and honed to kill, bright white with flecks of saliva and blood oozing down on them. At that moment, I felt like a piece of meat being fed to a lion. An all-encompassing kind of terror that forces your fight or flight to kick in. He lunged, and I barely had time to step aside, his face careening with the concrete. I knew that I'd just cost myself time, and if I was unsuccessful, they'd be on me in 60 seconds. Waiting for him to circle round and lunge again, I gripped the steak with both hands, and as he leapt forward, ducked down and allowed his body to sink onto mine. The steak plunging through his chest as a hiss left his mouth. Pushing him off, he lay on the ground, wheezing and chuckling.
You stupid fuck. This ain't enough. I'll just recoup and come after you twice as strong. It'll be just like with your little bitch, but more lively.
He coughed and spluttered as he tried to cackle, but the bravado left him as he saw the lighter and aerosol can put out in front of me. Well, you know what they all say with this. Revenge is a dish best served cold. I took a long look at this pathetic creature, knowing what he'd done and how ironic he was in the same position she was. And in that moment, I felt nothing. But who the fuck cares what the experts say, huh? I'll take piping hot revenge any day of the fucking week. I pushed down on the can and watched a ball of flame erupt from the lighter and make contact with Withers' flesh, searing him and everything around him. I turned on my heel and walked to the door, knowing the fire would cover any of my tracks. I was right. Withers was a known smoker, and it was determined he'd simply fallen asleep with a lit cigarette in his cell, starting the fire. Didn't make a ton of sense to me, but I'm not going to question my good fortune. A month passes before the next note comes through. I'm almost too eager for this routine, for the chance to get my revenge and be free of this prison. Mr. Alejandro, 2 men remain, one of which is going to attempt to kill you in the showers tomorrow evening. You may have realized that each of these men has also received a letter, but this is our way of ensuring a fair fight and forging you through the fire. He will have an entourage with him, someone you will not need to kill. If you choose to, it will not be judged upon. In this place, it is your survival or theirs. The target is a drug lord. He has only been in here for a few months, and while his sentence is predicted to be 25 years, his connections with our mutual acquaintance shall get him exonerated in under 2. You will put a stop to that. It should be noted that he is the one who drugged her, Mr. Alejandro. What you do with that information is your choice. We do, however, have a request. Before ending his life, ask him this question. Why do we follow the lure? We feel this will help shed some light on who we are and our mission statement. Good luck. Follow the lure. At least this time I knew he'd come for me. Saved me a whole lot of trouble. I kept my mind sharp and my elbows sharper as the allotted time came up. As I stepped into the showers, I heard the shuffling of heavy-duty boots as the guards took a lap and left me isolated, as two men rounded the corner to greet me. If they were shocked that I was expecting them, they didn't show it. The man on the left was a towering mass of muscle and force, likely a golem, vacant eyes and unwavering patience. The smaller man on the right had his black hair slicked back, tinted eyebrows perfectly trimmed to go with his bespoke beard as he grinned at me. This was my target, Don Marquez III.
So, this is the pretty boy who wanted to take me out, huh? You don't look like much, but looks can be deceiving. That's why I got my buddy Stax here. He's my problem solver. He clicked his fingers and Stax's face lit up. He walked towards me with arms outstretched and grabbed me by the shoulders before I knew it, his immense grip sending shock waves of pain through my body as Marquez walked around me still talking. You see, I don't have a lot of time to waste on a little bean sprout like you. I've got big plans here, and even bigger plans outside. Can't let uppity little shits like you forget their place now, can I? The closer he got, the more obvious it became. He wasn't a human either. The dead-eyed stare, the finely trimmed facial hair masking the masses of fur. I started laughing, my ribs crunching under the pressure. Man, I didn't think the rumors were true. But you are a fucking dog, man. Maybe I should have offered you a bone instead of a fight. His eyes flared and Stax gripped tighter, a rib breaking. I decided if I was going to do something, it had to be now. I pushed all my weight behind one kick to the kneecap of Stax, the sickening crunch telling me I hit my mark well, and he crashed to the ground in a heap, screaming. Marquez hunched over in the corner, his back arched and his posture growing wider and taller with every second. You wanna mock me because I'm small? Because I have protection in here? Oh, buddy boy, you really don't get it, do you? His voice grew discordant, animalistic and rabid. My own confidence began to wane as he grew to a height of nearly 7 feet, towering over me with a fearsome presence. He's here for your protection, not mine. He swiped at me, taking a chunk of my flesh with his claws as he seared my back. Pain riddled my body, but adrenaline is an amazing thing if you have enough of it in spades. I looked for an opening and threw an elbow at his jaw, knocking a tooth loose as he reeled from the damage. Overconfidence gripped me as I went in for a finishing shot, the fear running through me palpable as his jaw opened and clamped down hard on my bicep, lifting me up with ease until my feet were dangling off the floor and blood poured down my arm and onto the ground. I punched, kicked, and writhed as hard as I could, but the shock hit me within moments and I began to hallucinate. The world growing fuzzy as he grinned through the bite, ducked his head down and swung upwards with all his might, tearing free flesh and muscle as I went careening into the shower wall. My already damaged body collided with bricks and hot water, head spinning as he honed in on me. You should have left me alone, kid. I thought I recognized you, but it took me an up-close inspection to be sure. All this for a bitch? Really? Come on, man. What a fucking waste. Say hi to her for me, will ya? He laughed and licked his lips, his nose covered in blood and viscera as he moved in for the kill. That last bit of mockery sent me into a rage that forewent the concern of my own well-being and knowledge that further exertion would have me bled to death. What was the point if I couldn't even avenge her here? He lunged in, and it was all I could do to move to the right and let him hit the wall, mounting his back and putting him in prime position for my elbows to rain down on his skull. I felt his body twitch after the first 2 and fall limp after the next 3. I landed one more for good measure before crawling off and propping myself against the opposite wall, watching him as he became a broken, pathetic man again, barely moving as he struggled to stay conscious. I remembered the request of the letter and decided now was as good a time as any. Hey, Don Shithead. I got a question for you. It's from my sponsor. His eyes were dulled, but he could still understand me, and his head slowly rose to meet mine. Why do we follow the law? I asked, waiting for a response. His lip trembled and something flickered behind his eyes, but I couldn't say for sure if it was understanding, fear, or both. He took a moment to point a shaking finger at me before replying. Because we know the struggle is pointless. Eventually, we'll all be devoured. Follow the lure. I got up and surveyed him, the pathetic creature who helped commit that unspeakable act. I felt no pity for him as I raised my foot and slammed the boot full force into his skull, crushing it against the wall. His body felt limp, and he slumped to the ground next to a now inert Stax, masterless and without purpose. If they ruled this one an accident, I'd be amazed. I heard nothing on the subject for 4 more weeks, simply choosing to keep my head down and my mouth firmly shut. 2 weeks spent in the infirmary for damage and a further week on my own for my own safety before I could be let back into the Gen Pop. The staff tried to coax me into admitting Don Marquez iced me, but I didn't snitch, and there was inexplicably no proof despite my DNA undoubtedly all over him. Another thing to thank my sponsor for, I suppose. When I got back, there was one final letter awaiting me. My belongings bagged up alongside an official letter from the governor. Mr. Alejandro, it pleases us at AF Trust that you have been so passionate in your partnership with us. So much so that we are pleased to inform you that as of the end of the day, you will be processed and released. Someone will be waiting for you outside with your final assignment and future employment. Your funds have also been deposited into your account. Should you complete our job successfully, you will have a most comfortable life awaiting you. We look forward to working with you. Follow the lure. I couldn't believe my eyes. They'd done it. The letter from the governor granted me early release based on good behavior and testimonials that it was an unprecedented decision, but one made in good faith. There was his official title and signature at the bottom to boot. I was processed and stepped out into the world once more, the wind around me whipping up something fierce. A storm raging overhead as it made its way further inland. So much for a sunny day reception, huh? Sure enough, someone was waiting for me by a large van, waiting to take me away. Their features obscured by a dark trench coat, Denton hat, and a bizarre mask. Welcome back to the outside world, Mr. Alejandro. I trust your time inside wasn't terribly difficult? The voice was kind, but sounded forced. It carried with it a deep sense of unease that seeped into my pores. It could have been better. I assume you have the info on the main man? I asked, throwing my things at them. They caught it without so much as flinching, putting it in the side door without breaking eye contact. We do. It will be explained on the way, but we ask that you do this job for us in the process. It will not only bring you the revenge you seek for what happened to your partner, but... A brief flash of that night, finding those sick fuckers accosting her in an alleyway, taking her to their little den, pumping her full of drugs to bring out her latent abilities and fund their sick little online groups. They tortured her until she gave in. And they did worse. I found them through an anonymous tip and beat their leader until he was unrecognizable. But it wouldn't bring her back. Nothing would. But what? All I care about is taking his head. I want that evil motherfucker's body to be broken in front of me. I spat, hands shaking as I walked closer. A strong green glow rippled from the van and stopped me in my tracks, paralyzing me as the figure walked in front of me and stared down, something smiling behind the mask. Whoever this was, I knew they could end me in an instant without so much as a flick of their wrist. There was power within them. Well, Mr. Alejandro, you are in luck, because he will be participating in a unique fighting tournament known as the NFC. One that pits the strongest and most depraved warriors against one another. Our team is already in for this year, but we're in need of your skills to fill the spot. You join us, you get your revenge. If we win, you get a wish. He leaned in. A new kind of fright gripped me. One that told me to be very careful around this guy. I wonder what you'll wish for. I swallowed, my throat dry and feeling like it was full of razor blades. My mind going straight to her, to my angel. I'd bring her back in a heartbeat. In a fucking heartbeat, I breathed. The figure nodded and leaned back, gesturing for me to get in the van. Good. That's the kind of conviction you'll need for the NFC, Joseph. I'm sure Letty would be so proud of you. We'll bring her body back and lay it to rest. Don't you worry. That's right. Letty. Catherine Letty Alejandro. She disappeared after 2 years of heavy drinking following the loss of our daughter. Wound up in a bar she should have never gone to, and was given a fresh start thanks to the generosity of the bartender. I'm told he even has a wonderful dog to boot. Problem is, giving someone a fresh start means they're vulnerable too. While the bartender, Sully, got her a ride home to sleep off the effects. He didn't check who was driving it. No good deed goes unpunished, and bad people are attracted to unique energies, and they sniffed her out within minutes. That man and his group were looking for fresh thrills, attracted to young, vulnerable women who displayed unique talents. They live-streamed their exploits on private dark web forums after they got shut down on Facebook by the moderating team. He really thought he was unstoppable, I'm sure. But he sealed his fate the moment he laid hands on my Letty. We sat in the back of the van for a while in silence as the driver made his way through Sturgeon's busy streets and into the entertainment district, past the Hotel Inertia, the Williams estate, and the spot where the spaces in between once sat. Before long, we were descending through the underground tunnel and into the pit, the venue that would play host to the ensuing carnage that would determine how all of us lived or died. The last image I had of the outside world was seeing that final patch of sky engulfed by thick pillars of black clouds, threatening to blot out the very sun itself. As we pulled up, the masked figure spoke to me again. Why do we follow the lure, Joseph? I thought about my experience and what lay ahead of me. Because it will lead us to our goal. It is the light that guides. He chuckled and shook his head, knocking twice on the van door and shuffling, running around the car as the other members got out and walked towards the locker room. No. It's because we are the unseen beast in the deep seas. We devour anything in our way. We are the apex predators. He got out, and images of the monster who butchered my Letty's body flooded through my mind. How they drugged her, had their way with her, made an absolute mockery of her last moments. I thought it was sharks, I retorted. Trying to hold my nerve as a mixture of anger and excitement to kill flooded my veins. Fear still very much present behind it all, as I knew I was walking into the jaws of a beast. No, there's many things concealed in the depths, save for the soft light of a lure leading its victims close enough to strike. That is the anglerfish. A name I've heard many times. An elusive killer who targeted specific people for his or her own purposes. No different to Letty's killer, really. But it's the devil you know, ain't it? As we walked a little further in, various teams passed me by, as did staff. When we turned the corner, for the briefest of moments, I saw him. The monster who took my Letty. Mr. Payne, congregating with his group of freaks. I saw his hulking, vile frame as he laughed and took notes with them, devising strategies. But when those eyes locked onto me, fear enshrouded my body like a cloak of ice. I felt everything Letty felt in those last few hours. The way she'd suffered and pleaded for her life as he and his entourage amped up the pain and the suffering. It was almost enough to bring me to my knees and beg for my life. What the hell was this man? But no sooner did the masked figure put his hand on me and bring my attention back, did rage burn away every piece of fear. We are the beast nobody expects, Joseph. And soon, you will get to prove it to them. I felt something when I looked at him. Something odd. I had to satiate my curiosity and ask. You're the anglerfish killer, right? The one everyone in Sturgeon's been talking about. He cocked his head to the side and made an audible, huh, noise, as if surprised. I suppose that much is obvious, yes. This is my order. But that's not your only question, is it? I knew I had to get this out there, to ensure no lingering doubts or distrust remained if I was to do the job. What is your job title in Sturgeon? Because I think I know how I got out of that prison. How my sponsors' letters got through, and how nobody seemed to know I did those things. Or maybe they just didn't care. Governor. He clapped his hands slowly, laughing. Anything else you wish to know, you can ask before we start the opening ceremony. But I will say this. All of us in life need a lure, including you. Mine just so happens to be the most powerful authority in Sturgeon. I know this group has done wrong. I think every group here has. No saints without sinners. I don't want to know every sordid detail of their past because I don't care. I'm here to do a job. To get my vengeance. To see that fucking animal put down. I am Letty's anger manifested. And nobody is gonna stop me. Follow the lure.
Well, how about that? A connection to the old spaces in between. Bet you didn't see that coming, huh? All roads lead back to that infernal fighting pit. I wonder if they'll call upon me soon. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of our other transmissions. We're adding them regularly and we'd love to have you as part of the Dusklot family by subscribing, hitting the bell of torment, and leave a comment with stories you'd love for my many-legged runners to find. Now, I want to thank all of our patrons for making this possible. If you want to sign up, it's as little as $1 and you get exclusive content, early access videos and stories, updates, and more. But times are tough and we will always be grateful for support no matter what form it comes in. Financial, spiritual, corporeal, maniacal, whatever you want. It really helps us out. Dusklot give thanks to our Sturgeonite faithfuls Haley Clark, PRDDL12, Asher Bell, Sabrina Alexander, Jason Webb, Larry W., and newest Sturgeonite to town, Casper Noren. Enjoy the new signbook, Casper. Purple Crayon Eaters Julia Krager, who bought a Midnight Magenta collection as part of her initiation, Candyman Gloving, Feeny Von Karma, Newman Borders, Death 31, and Heather Cayley, who, after sacrificing librarians, began to consume all the purple crayons in the production factories to feel magenta on the inside. Our janitors Alex Nunes, Amy Sean, Arkham Cookie, and new recruit Sabiel Eclipse, replacing the recently promoted Ethan, having defeated the covetous Criterion Collector, now must brace themselves for a new threat. The purple crayon wife TJ has been building. Our nightmare detectives Adrian Rodriguez, cop buddy Ethan Nelson, and new recruits Fox Clifford, a recent transfer from Kenosha County with a thick Necronomicon guide and a loose Eldritch cannon, and Gianni De La Reina, who, having solved the question of Arby's, they now move on to a more slippery, greasy foe. The downtown pierogi shop that never seems to close. What is in their special sauce? Our Void Walker, Professor Creepypasta, having allied with the Magenta King, is now accessing esoteric knowledge forbidden to mere mortals. Oh dear, that is not gonna end well. And our ever-expanding Blackwell family, Jackal Blackwell, scourge of gas station sushi outlets, Clue Blackwell, the twisting, shambling horror, Tabitha Blackwell, wearing a muscle tee with Kyle's face as a skull she smashed, declaring herself Spine Queen, and Papa Kyle Blackwell, preparing his greatest weapon in this family feud, the Spine Lord. We love and fear you, Papa, and we thank you all humbly for your patronage and look forward to seeing you bright and early for Dusklight orientation. Purple crayons and existential dread will be provided. And one last time, listeners, close your eyes and breathe with me. Remember, no matter how bad things are, how cruel people can be, and how heavy your shoulders may feel with the weight of the world bearing down on them, Dusklight will always be here to lift the load and provide you with some respite. I'm starting to hear some very ominous buzzing, listeners, so quickly now, drink some lemonade Capri Sun, have some nuggies, watch a video about the history of Dream Pop, and sleep on the cool side of the pillow with the window open and the stars twinkling down on you. Start and end each day with kindness in your heart. You matter, you are loved, and every day is another chance. I'll see you again when the sun sets and dusk enters the station.